Jungkook's hands trembled as he wiped Jimin's tears. What he whispered next shocked everyone. Loudly crying face, broken heart, red heart. Jungkook didn't realize he was shaking until his fingers brushed the wet warmth on Jimin's cheek. Hyung, please look at me, he whispered, voice cracking like something inside him had just split open. The room around them pulsed with the hum of distant footsteps, the metallic thud of a door that had slammed moments earlier, and the sharp scent of Jimin's cologne mixing with tension so thick it felt physical. Jimin didn't lift his head at first. His breath hitched, ragged, silent, painful, and Jungkook felt something primal twist inside his chest. The night had already spiraled out of control long before Jungkook reached Jimin's room. He had heard the argument from down the hall, the harsh exchange of words between Jimin and a manager whose voice trembled with anger. Something about trust. Something about betrayal. Something about a secret that Jungkook wasn't supposed to know. When the door slammed and everything went quiet, Jungkook reacted without thinking. His feet moved before his mind caught up. His hands pushed the door open before he realized he wasn't supposed to be there. And now Jimin sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders trembling, hands clutching the fabric of his pants so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Hyung, Jungkook tried again, softer this time, as if afraid a louder sound would shatter the fragile air between them. He cupped Jimin's face, thumb brushing away another tear before it could fall. Talk to me, please. Jimin finally lifted his eyes, and the rawness inside them made Jungkook's breath stutter. There was fear there, deep, piercing, and foreign, the kind that didn't belong on someone who always carried the world with a smile. Jimin's voice was barely audible, more breath than sound. You shouldn't be here. I don't care, Jungkook said, too quickly, the words almost a reflex. He swallowed, forcing steadiness into his voice. I'm not leaving you like this. The tension in Jimin's jaw flickered, like he was fighting something inside himself. The moonlight slipping through the blinds painted pale stripes across his face, highlighting the vulnerability that Jimin hated showing but couldn't hide now. They said I ruined everything, Jimin murmured, fingers curling tighter into the sheets. They think I've been lying. They think I'm hiding something. His throat bobbed in a swallow. And maybe I am. Jungkook felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Hyung, tell me what happened. Jimin's lips trembled, but he didn't answer. Instead, he pressed his palms to his eyes, as if ashamed of the tears that continued slipping through his fingers. Jungkook's hands moved instinctively, pulling those trembling hands down gently, forcing Jimin to look at him. You don't have to be afraid of me, he whispered. Jimin's breath quivered. That's exactly what scares me. Jungkook froze. There were things he had wondered before, things he had pushed aside, dismissed, buried under schedules and noise and the unspoken rule that some feelings were too dangerous to name. But hearing it in Jimin's voice, heavy with something that felt too close to truth, made Jungkook's pulse scatter. What do you mean? He asked carefully. Jimin shook his head. If I tell you, things will change. They already have. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. Jungkook moved closer, until their knees brushed and Jimin's breath faltered. He didn't touch him again, not yet. He just waited. Let the silence grow, warm and alive, instead of suffocating. I don't want you to carry something alone, Jungkook said finally. Not when it's breaking you like this. For a moment, Jimin's mask slipped completely. He exhaled shakily, the sound uneven, and his shoulders sank as if surrendering to exhaustion he could no longer hide. I didn't betray anyone, he said. But I did hide something. Something I should have said a long time ago. His eyes flicked up to Jungkook's, shimmering with conflict, fear tangled with relief, longing laced with guilt. And now they're demanding answers. And I'm terrified they'll find out the truth before I can say it myself. Jungkook's heart thudded, heavy and loud. What truth? He asked, voice almost a whisper. Jimin's breath caught. His fingers twitched like he wanted to reach out but didn't dare. The silence stretched again, fragile and trembling like the air before a storm. Then, slowly, carefully, Jimin leaned his forehead against Jungkook's. A soft, broken inhale brushed Jungkook's lips. His voice trembled. The truth is, the person I can't let go of is you. Jungkook's entire body went still. The world around them faded, the distant footsteps, the muffled voices, the cold hum of the air conditioner. Everything dissolved into the warmth of Jimin's breath, the raw sincerity in his confession, The crushing realization that this was the secret tearing him apart. Jungkook's hands, still trembling, lifted to cup Jimin's cheeks again. His thumbs brushed gently over the skin he had memorized without ever admitting it. Hyung, he whispered, breath uneven. Look at me. Jimin did, and Jungkook leaned in, close enough for Jimin to feel every word as it trembled from his lips. You're not the only one hiding something. Jimin's eyes widened, shimmering in the dim light. The tension in his shoulders loosened, not in relief, but in shock, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. Jungkook's voice softened, but the emotion in it was unmistakable. I've been scared too. Jimin's breath hitched. Scared of what? That if I told the truth, Jungkook murmured, I'd lose the person I care about most. Jimin blinked hard, tears clinging to his lashes. Why would you lose me? Jungkook swallowed, his thumb brushing the corner of Jimin's mouth, gentle, reverent, terrified. Because the way I feel about you isn't something I'm supposed to feel. Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came out. His heartbeat echoed in the tight space between them. But if you want the truth, Jungkook whispered, finally letting the words fall, I've never cared about anyone the way I care about you. And that's what scared me more than anything. Jimin's tears didn't fall this time. They stayed suspended, shimmering in the quiet light, held in place by astonishment rather than pain. Without saying a word, Jimin reached up and touched Jungkook's hands, steadying them, grounding him, as if this time he was the one saving Jungkook from breaking. His voice came out soft, fragile, but certain. Then don't be scared anymore. And Jungkook, who had been running from this truth for far too long, finally let himself breathe. The air between them trembled, thick with everything they had never dared to say. Jungkook stood frozen, pulse pounding so hard he could feel it in his fingertips. Jimin's whisper still lingered in the dim studio, hanging in the space like something forbidden. Jungkook tried to swallow, but his throat refused cooperation. Hyung, say that again, he murmured, his voice a low rasp caught somewhere between disbelief and desperate hope. Jimin stepped back instead, the brief closeness already too dangerous. His breath stuttered, and under the softened lights he looked both terrified and unbearably vulnerable. I shouldn't have said anything, he muttered. It was a mistake. No, Jungkook said quickly, taking a half-step forward without thinking. It wasn't. Jimin's eyes flicked up, wide, glassy, almost pleading. You don't understand what this means. Then make me understand. Jungkook's voice was sharper than he intended, driven by the fear that Jimin would retreat again emotionally, physically, completely. The door to the hallway cracked open. A couple of staff passed by, laughing about something unrelated. They didn't notice the tension inside, didn't see the two idols standing too close in the low light, didn't hear the way Jungkook's breath hitched when Jimin looked away. As soon as they were gone, Jungkook reached out hesitantly. Jimin. Please. Jimin's shoulders stiffened at the sound of his name spoken without honorifics. It wasn't disrespect, it was intimacy. The kind that could unravel him if he let it. Jimin lifted a hand as if to shield himself but ended up pressing his palm flat against Jungkook's chest, right above his racing heart. This is exactly why I have to stay away, he whispered. This. Right here. His fingers trembled, feeling the frantic thrum under his touch. Jungkook covered Jimin's hand with his own, warm and firm. If you're scared, let me be scared with you. Jimin flinched. You say that like fear is something we can share without consequences. Jungkook softened, gaze searching Jimin's face. You think I don't know the consequences? I know them better than anyone. You think I haven't thought about it every day? Every time we're close, or laughing, or, his voice cracked. Every time I look at you. Jimin closed his eyes, as if the words burned too brightly to face. A sudden thud echoed from the far side of the studio, someone dropping a crate. Voices followed, footsteps approaching. The two jolted apart like the room had snapped them back into reality. Jimin turned away quickly, running a hand through his hair, forcing a neutral expression onto his face just as the lighting staff re-entered. You guys okay? One asked casually, oblivious. Yeah, Jungkook answered, though his voice betrayed him with its tightness. Just practicing lines. The staff nodded and moved on. As soon as they were out of earshot, Jimin whispered, we can't talk about this here. Then where? Jungkook asked immediately. I'm not letting this go. Jimin walked past him, heading toward the back exit where the hallway led to the dressing rooms. "Not now," he said, his voice barely audible but firm. "We need to finish shooting. You expect me to pretend nothing happened?" "You've done it before," Jimin shot back, the sharpness surprising even himself. He stopped walking, inhaling shakily. "I mean, we both have." Jungkook stared at the back of Jimin's head, feeling the sting of the truth. Yes, they had pretended before. Danced around things. Looked away when eyes lingered too long. Laughed off moments that held too much weight, but this was different. Jimin had said the words this time. Words that couldn't be unsaid. "Jimin, when you pulled away in front of everyone, do you know what that did to me?" Jimin's shoulders tightened. "I thought you hated me," Jungkook whispered, the pain in his voice unguarded. "I thought I lost you." Jimin turned slowly. His expression was broken in a way he never let others see. "You didn't lose me," he said softly. "That's the problem." Jungkook's breath left him in a shaky exhale before he could respond. The director's voice boomed through the studio speakers. "Everyone back on set. We're resuming in 2 minutes." Jimin straightened immediately, slipping the professional mask back on. Jungkook watched the transformation with a twist in his chest. He hated how easily Jimin could hide everything he felt. Hated how practiced the smile was when it reappeared, but as Jimin walked past him to return to the set, he paused just long enough for only Jungkook to hear him. "Meet me after we wrap," he whispered, eyes flicking toward the side door where the hallway curved out of sight. "I'll tell you everything." Jungkook nodded once, a quiet vow settling in his bones. The next hours passed in strained silence. Their acting was crisp but lifeless, their timing perfect but cold. The crew noticed, whispered, speculated. One of the stylists glanced between them during a break and muttered, "Their chemistry is off today. Something's wrong." The final shot took longer than expected, and by the time the director called it a day, everyone was exhausted. The crew packed up quickly, eager to go home. Lights dimmed one by one until only the emergency strips along the walls remained. Jungkook waited near the exit, heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. Every minute felt like it stretched into an hour. Then Jimin appeared, head down, hoodie pulled over his hair, moving quietly like someone slipping through shadows. He didn't speak as he passed Jungkook, just brushed their hands together subtly, nervously, a secret touch meant to guide him. They walked down the empty hall, shoes soft against the polished floor, their shadows long under the ceiling lights. At the far end, they slipped into one of the unused rehearsal rooms, dark, quiet, isolated. Jimin locked the door, his hands shook. Jungkook's breath caught. Jimin leaned against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor, knees pulled close like he was trying to hold himself together. "Before I tell you anything," he whispered, "you need to promise me something." Jungkook lowered himself to the floor across from him, closing the distance inch by inch but careful not to overwhelm him. "Anything. Don't hate me," Jimin murmured, fingers curling against the cold tiles. Don't look at me differently after this. Please." "I could never hate you," Jungkook said immediately. Jimin lifted his eyes, and in them was a fear Jungkook had never seen before, something deep, raw, bruised. "Jungkook, I didn't reject you in front of everyone because I don't want you." "Then why?" Jungkook whispered, heart hammering. Jimin inhaled, exhaled, then finally spoke the words that he'd been holding back for far too long. "Because someone told me what would happen to you if I didn't." Jungkook's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Jimin's voice broke. "I mean, someone threatened your career. And I believed them." The room went still, the revelation slicing through the air like lightning. Jungkook stared at him, stunned into silence, and Jimin, eyes wet, finally let the truth spill. "I hurt you to protect you." The weight of it dropped between them, heavy, dangerous, irreversible. The air in the hallway felt colder when Jungkook and Jimin stepped out of the room, as if the walls themselves knew secrets had just been exposed. Jungkook stayed close, his hand hovering near Jimin's lower back without quite touching, both a promise of protection and a warning to anyone who might be watching. Jimin's breathing was shallow, his shoulders tense in a way that made Jungkook silently furious all over again. They hadn't even reached the end of the hallway when they heard the muffled voices rising from the conference room. Jungkook recognized the manager's tone immediately, sharp, clipped, laced with something that sounded disturbingly personal. "They're spiraling," Jimin whispered, unable to hide the tremor in his voice. "They can spiral all they want," Jungkook muttered. "But they're not tearing you apart." Jimin glanced at him with an expression equal parts desperation and admiration. He wanted to lean into Jungkook's strength, but the fear of being seen together like this held him back. He took one small step away. Jungkook frowned. "Don't," Jungkook said softly. "Not from me." Jimin swallowed hard. "They're already watching us." "I don't care." The conference room door swung open before Jimin could respond, and the manager stepped out. His expression tightened the moment he saw them. "Of course," he said bitterly. "Together." Jimin flinched, but Jungkook stepped forward, shoulders squared. "We need to talk." The manager let out a cold laugh. "Oh, we will. Inside. Now." Jimin hesitated. Jungkook grabbed his wrist gently, grounding him, then released it before anyone could comment. Inside the room, the tension hit like a slap. Namjoon was already there, leaning against the table with his arms crossed, jaw clenched. The others weren't present, but their absence didn't make the air any less suffocating. The manager paced once before stopping in front of Jimin. "Do you know how many calls I've received tonight?" he snapped. "Do you know how bad this looks? You disappearing, locking yourself alone, avoiding schedules, crying." "Stop," Jungkook said sharply. "And on top of that, Jungkook sneaking into your room like this is some kind of." "I said stop." The manager's eyes snapped toward Jungkook. "Watch your tone." Jimin stepped between them instinctively. "Please don't fight." "No," Jungkook said, voice low, eyes locked on the manager. "He doesn't get to talk to you like that." Jimin froze at those words, stunned by the conviction behind them. The manager faced Jungkook fully. "You want honesty," he hissed. "Fine." Jimin has become unstable, emotional, distracted, and every single time it ties back to you. "You're the problem." Jimin's breath collapsed. "Sir, that's not." "Then explain the tears," the manager spat. "Explain the late-night meetings. Explain why he hasn't been able to focus unless you're in the room." Jimin's voice cracked. "It's not his fault." Jungkook felt a surge of protective rage so intense it bordered on dangerous. "If you want to blame someone," he said through clenched teeth, "blame me. Don't put everything on him." The manager stepped closer, practically nose to nose with Jungkook. "Don't worry. I already have." Namjoon finally intervened, voice steady but stern. "That's enough." "No, it's not enough," the manager shot back. "Because this is bigger than a simple emotional issue. We have investors calling. Media sniffing around. And if they find out these two." Jimin shut his eyes. Jungkook's heartbeat pounded like a warning drum. Namjoon spoke before the manager could finish. "We're not discussing their private lives like that." The manager scoffed. "Their private lives affect millions of dollars and the future of the group." Jungkook's anger boiled over. "You think we don't know that? Then act like it." Jimin's silence cut deeper than the argument. He looked smaller somehow, shrinking under the weight of expectations and accusations. Jungkook saw it, saw the way Jimin's hands trembled, saw the guilt in his eyes, saw the shame that didn't belong to him but had been forced onto him. "Enough," Jungkook said again, voice lower now, controlled only by sheer will. "If you want to know why he's upset, then ask him. Don't make assumptions. Don't twist things. Don't use him as a scapegoat." Jimin trembled. "Jungkook." The manager turned his attention back to Jimin. "Fine. Then tell me. What have you been hiding?" Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came out. His voice had abandoned him again. The manager's expression hardened. "If you cannot answer, then we have no choice but to." "I was the one who confessed first," Jimin suddenly blurted. Silence fell like a crash. The manager blinked. Namjoon's eyes widened. Jungkook froze. Jimin's chest heaved with every breath. "I was the one who messed up. I was the one who couldn't hide how I felt anymore. If someone should be blamed, it's me." "Jimin," Jungkook whispered, horrified. The manager stared at him with disbelief. "You confessed?" Jimin forced himself to nod. "Confessed what, exactly?" the manager pressed, voice dangerously soft. The question felt like a loaded gun. Jungkook stepped forward instantly. "He doesn't have to repeat that to you." Actually, the manager snapped, he does. Jimin looked at Jungkook, and for a moment his eyes said everything he couldn't. I'm scared. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want us to be a mistake. Jungkook nodded once. A silent promise. I'm here. Say what you need to. Jimin inhaled shakily. I told him I cared for him, he said softly. More than I should. The manager closed his eyes as if hearing the confirmation made everything worse. And Jungkook? Jungkook lifted his chin. I told him the truth too. The manager let out a long, exasperated breath. Unbelievable. Namjoon rubbed his face. This is going to explode. Not if we control it, Jungkook said. The manager laughed bitterly. You think you can control feelings? You think the two of you can hide this forever? Jimin whispered, we never wanted to hide. And that, the manager said coldly, is exactly why you're a problem. Jungkook felt something inside him snap. If caring about someone makes me a problem, Jungkook said, then maybe you're looking at the wrong threat. The manager stared at him as if he were insane. You're risking everything. Jungkook's voice dropped to a low, dangerous whisper. I won't let you use fear to control him anymore. Jimin's breath shook. Namjoon stiffened. The manager stared, stunned by Jungkook's defiance. You're serious, the manager said quietly. As serious as it gets, Jungkook replied. And what about you, Jimin? The manager asked. Do you agree with this reckless loyalty? Jimin lifted his head slowly. His voice was small but steady. I want to stop being afraid. The manager exhaled sharply, pacing again. You two have no idea what storm you're inviting. Jungkook finally softened, not angry, but tired and unflinching. Then let it come. Jimin looked at Jungkook again. And in that moment, something in him broke free, fear giving way to courage, trembling shame replaced by a fragile but undeniable conviction that he took a small step closer to Jungkook. Not enough to spark outrage, but enough to show he wasn't backing down. Namjoon watched them with a heavy, conflicted expression. We'll figure a way through this, he said quietly. The manager sighed, defeated but still wary. This conversation isn't over. But for tonight, go. Both of you. And stay out of sight. Jimin nodded. Jungkook stayed still, refusing to move until Jimin did. When they stepped out of the room and the door closed behind them, Jimin let out a breath that sounded like the first clean inhale after drowning. Jungkook reached for him instinctively, hand hovering at his waist. Jimin, he said gently. You okay? Jimin shook his head. No. Jungkook's voice softened even more. Do you want me to stay with you? Jimin hesitated only a second before whispering, please. Jungkook didn't need more than that. They walked back to Jimin's room in silence, not because there was nothing to say, but because every unspoken word between them felt louder than anything they could voice. Inside the dim room, Jimin finally exhaled the breath he'd been holding. He leaned his back against the door after closing it, sliding down slowly until he sat on the floor. Jungkook knelt in front of him. Hyung, Jimin's voice cracked in a broken whisper. I feel like everything is collapsing. Jungkook gently cupped his face again. Then we'll rebuild it together. Jimin lifted his eyes. They shimmered with exhaustion, fear, and a fragile kind of hope. Why do you keep choosing me, even now? Jungkook's thumbs brushed softly against Jimin's skin. Because no matter how terrified you are, you still look at me like I'm the only thing holding you together. Jimin's breath hitched. And because, Jungkook continued, voice trembling, I can't imagine a world where I don't choose you. Jimin's lips parted, trembling, and he leaned forward just enough for their foreheads to touch again, the softest contact, but somehow the most intimate. Under the quiet dark, with the weight of the world pressing against the door outside, they stayed like that, breathing the same air, holding on to a truth that refused to stay hidden any longer. Jimin whispered, barely audible, don't let go. Jungkook closed his eyes. I won't. And for the first time all night, Jimin let the fear inside him fade, even if just for a moment. The dorm felt too quiet that night, the kind of silence that presses against the walls as if holding its breath. Jimin lay awake on his bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word Jungkook had said earlier, the confession that was too raw, too vulnerable, too dangerous. He could still hear Jungkook's voice cracking when he'd whispered, I can't lose you. Jimin closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing, But the truth he had been avoiding for months throbbed beneath his ribs. Jungkook wasn't just someone he cared for. He was the one person capable of breaking him without even trying. A sudden knock shattered the silence. Sharp, urgent, familiar. Jimin didn't move at first. Another knock, harder this time. Jimin, open the door. His voice was low, tense, threaded with something Jimin couldn't decipher, fear or fury, or both. When Jimin opened the door, Jungkook stood there with his hoodie half-zipped, breath uneven, eyes burning with questions he was clearly done holding back. He stepped inside before Jimin could invite him. You left earlier without saying anything, Jungkook said, pacing the room as if trying to outrun his own emotions. You just walked away after everything I said. Why? Jimin swallowed. I needed time. I've given you time, Jungkook shot back, turning sharply toward him. But now I need answers, Jimin. I can't keep pretending everything is normal. The tension crackled like static between them. Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper. What do you want me to say? The truth, Jungkook said. Yours. Not the one you hide behind the smile you show everyone else. Jimin sat on the edge of his bed, fingers gripping the blanket. You don't understand. If I say the wrong thing, everything could change. Everything could fall apart. And what if saying nothing ruins us even faster? Jungkook demanded. Jimin looked at him, then really looked, and saw the months of suppressed emotion swelling behind those dark eyes, the exhaustion of loving someone who wouldn't let himself be loved back. Jungkook moved closer, slow but deliberate, until he was standing right in front of him. Do you even know how many nights I stayed awake thinking I messed everything up? Thinking you hated me? Thinking I should just leave because maybe my presence complicates everything? Jimin's breath caught. Don't say that. Why not? It's true, isn't it? Jungkook's voice cracked again, the frustration spilling out. You won't talk. You won't let me in. But you get jealous. You get distant. You get hurt. Jimin, what am I supposed to do with that? Jimin stood abruptly, heart pounding too loudly for him to think clearly. I get jealous because you keep getting close to everyone but me. I get distant because every time I try to pull away, you chase me and confuse me all over again. I get hurt because he stopped. Jungkook stepped forward, eyes searching. Because what? Jimin shook his head, voice trembling. If I say it, you'll use it against me without meaning to. Jungkook grabbed his wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough that Jimin froze. I would never hurt you. Say it. Jimin finally broke. Because I care about you too much. Silence. Jungkook's grip on his wrist loosened as shock flickered across his face, followed by something deeper, something almost fierce. Too much, he repeated quietly. Jimin nodded, shoulders shaking. More than I should. Jungkook's breath hitched. He lifted his hands slowly, as though touching something fragile, and cupped Jimin's face. Then why does it feel like you're running away from me? Because I'm scared, Jimin whispered. Because people watch us. Because our world doesn't allow mistakes. Because if this goes wrong, I lose my best friend. Jungkook let out a shaky, humorless laugh. Newsflash, I'm scared too. Terrified. But losing you because we're both cowards? He shook his head. That's worse. Before Jimin could respond, a sudden loud thud echoed from the hallway, followed by Taehyung's unmistakable voice. Did you hear something? I swear someone's shouting. Jimin and Jungkook froze. Footsteps approached. Closer. Suspicious. Jungkook's eyes widened. We can't let them walk in now. Jimin opened his mouth to respond, but it was too late. The doorknob twisted. Jungkook acted on instinct, grabbing Jimin and pulling him behind the door just as it cracked open a few centimeters. Taehyung's voice seeped through the gap. Jimin. Jungkook. Why is it so quiet in here? They held their breath, Jungkook's hand still around Jimin's wrist, their bodies pressed too close in the narrow space behind the door. Minutes felt like hours. Taehyung lingered, suspicious, then finally sighed. Whatever. But if I hear weird noises again, I'm coming back. The door shut. Jimin exhaled shakily. Jungkook didn't let go, see? Jungkook murmured, voice low against the quiet room. Everything around us is chaos. But this, he lifted their joined hands. This is the only thing that feels real. Jimin looked at him, the fear still there but softened now by something warmer, something braver. Then stay, Jimin whispered. Jungkook's eyes widened, surprise and relief crashing together. Are you sure? He asked. For the first time, Jimin said, I think I am. And for the first time in months, neither of them ran. The tension in the room didn't fade, it only deepened. Jungkook and Jimin stood there, hands still intertwined, as if both were waiting for the other to pull away. But neither did. For a long moment, the world outside their door, Taehyung's footsteps, the murmurs from the hallway, the weight of expectations, felt distant, irrelevant. Jimin looked up at Jungkook, his expression softening into something honest, something he had never allowed himself to show so clearly before. Stay, he repeated, voice steady this time. Jungkook let out a breath he'd been holding for months. He brushed a thumb across the back of Jimin's hand and nodded. I'm right here. Jimin sank onto the bed, pulling Jungkook with him, not with desperation but with clarity, like someone who had finally chosen his truth. Jungkook sat close, their knees touching, their breaths mingling in the quiet. For the first time, there was no fear in the silence, only relief. You know this won't be easy, Jimin said softly. People will talk. The members will notice. Everything could. I don't care. Jungkook cut him off gently. If we break together. If we fight together. I'm done pretending you're just someone to me. Jimin's eyes glistened. You're not just someone to me either. Jungkook smiled, a small, fragile smile, but real. Then let's stop acting like we're made of glass. Jimin nodded, a tear finally slipping free. Jungkook reached out and wiped it away with the same tenderness he'd shown the first night everything fell apart between them. What now? Jimin whispered. Now, Jungkook said, taking both of Jimin's hands, we choose each other. Even if the world doesn't understand. Jimin leaned his forehead against Jungkook's, closing his eyes. I'm tired of running. Then don't. Jungkook's voice dropped to a soft, almost trembling murmur. Stay with me. Stay because you want to, not because you're scared of losing me. I want to, Jimin breathed. More than anything. A small laugh escaped Jungkook, shaky, full of disbelief and relief. He pulled Jimin into a tight embrace, as if anchoring himself. Then that's enough. The door creaked outside again, but neither of them cared. The world could come in, crash down, demand explanations, tear up rumors, twist headlines into knives. Let it. For once, Jimin didn't feel fragile under the weight of those possibilities. For once, Jungkook wasn't chasing clarity, he had it. They held each other until the trembling in their chests steadied, until the fear dissolved into something warmer and stronger than both of them had expected. Jungkook finally leaned back, hands still resting on Jimin's shoulders. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Jimin nodded. Together. And for the first time since everything began, the confusion, the distance, the jealousy, the ache, they weren't two people dancing around the truth anymore. They weren't running, hiding, or pretending. They were choosing. The hallway outside fell quiet. The storm inside them finally calmed. Jimin laced their fingers once more, squeezing lightly. You're home, he whispered. Jungkook squeezed back. So are you. And as the night settled around them, neither of them wondered what tomorrow would bring. For the first time, tomorrow wasn't something to fear, it was something that belonged to them. The story didn't end with chaos or uncertainty. It ended with two people finally choosing honesty over fear. A quiet ending. A brave one, and the only one that was ever meant for them.